Cowards.
We want to thank you so much for making Cowards the #1 book in America. We want to tell you that we beat the #2 book by 65%, and yet the New York Times declared yesterday that the #2 book, which we sold 65% more, is #1, and we're #2.
Shocking.
I mean, this is the third time, is it not?
I think it is the
third time. One time they corrected it because we looked at the numbers and we were like, okay, right? Didn't they correct it?
Sounds right. Yeah,
right.
I think.
And then
right.
a second time, well, I don't remember which book it was. Another one, we were #1, but it was close. It was like within 5,000 books. This is not even in the 65% more copies of my book sold than #2, and the New York Times. Well, no.
Yeah.
Not number.
They got to correct
#1.
this too.
They won't. They won't.
Got to.
They won't.
Yeah, the New York Times, if you don't, stupid inside book stuff, but they have their own secret formula. It's like the special sauce formula.
Yeah.
23 herbs and spices that they put into this. And the 22 of the 23 herbs and spices aren't book sales, apparently.
So look, I don't think that this is necessarily, because the book that they made #1 is an anti-Obama book. So I'm not saying that they did this because, look, they just hate anybody they wanted to make this other book #1.
No, they just hate you.
Yeah,
I think that's
whatever
what
it is, I don't care. I just want it when you have a system, when it was in within 1,000 or 2,000 books, okay, your secret formula, whatever. They weight these independent, snotty bookstores more than Barnes and Noble, whatever. A book apparently is not a book. Let's judge it by the cover and where it's been sold. But that's the New York Times. That's their little weighting system, whatever. But when you have something that sold 65% more than #2, there's no formula that makes that accurate.
Yeah.
There's no formula that makes that accurate. The New York Times, again, is just a pile of crap.
And again, that's not the first time you said that, which is also probably not the first why.
I want #1. I'm never publishing any of our books or republishing any of them with #1 New York Times bestseller on them. We have 7 #1 New York Times bestsellers. Why are we giving them this crap? Because we actually have 9 #1 New York Times bestsellers.
Well, it's funny.
Why are we saying that? It's #1 national bestseller. That's what it is.
Very funny. We were talking about this yesterday, and maybe we just need to come up with like the Blaze to just do their own list that actually that it's accurate. And remember, BookScan already does that.
Yeah.
They just look at the amount of books sold. They don't have any secret formula. They tell you the exact numbers. And
but that's what we mean. When I said the Blaze has to do this. Blaze has to do this. We have our own. We have to replace the New York Times, and they have their own secret formula. And we'll just be real straight up. Here's our secret formula. BookScan. When you go, boop, it counts it. Boop, it counts it. When you go on and you hit the keys and you're like, buy it, click here. Click, it counts it. And that's how we decide what's #1. It's no secret formula. We're reporting the facts. If the New York Times can be so skewed where they can get something 65% wrong, when the facts are numbered, this is math. This is math.
Especially for book sales. It's not like, remember when we were in music radio and Billboard used to do their Hot 100 based on sales and radio station airplay. Well, what's the formula here? You got sales and what? That's it. You got sales.
Their deal is they count, like, for instance, if a book, and this is how you keep really snotty liberal, and this isn't the case this time, but this is how you keep the really snotty liberal books alive. They count, I don't remember what it is, because you don't know the formula, but what people suspect is that they count the independent bookstores, their sales, like 2 to 1.
Why?
I have no idea. So when you go into if you're buying it at Walmart,
you don't count as much.
You don't count as much as if you go to one of these high-end, snotty, shop around the corner kind of bookstores.
Nice, well, you've got mail reference there.
Yeah, I mean, you go to one of those, and it's a Jimmy Stewart one, not Tom Hanks. But you go into one of those, you count for more. You go into Walmart, you go into Target, you go into anybody, you go to Barnes and Noble, wherever people actually buy books. You have to buy 2 to count as as the one. It's crazy.
Yeah, but what
it's
a great analogy it is for their news coverage. Like, you have a set of facts that go into their system, and something completely opposite comes out. And that's exactly what happened here. And it's exactly what happens with their health care coverage, and it's exactly what happens with their war coverage and everything else.
You're like, wait a minute, I saw that same speech. What facts did you use to process that?
Mm-hmm.
When they are on mathematics, 65% wrong. When you get down to stories, how can you possibly trust a thing they say? This is math. These are numbers. Period. Not opinion. So I just find it an amazing story. And the Blaze has to have their, we have to find out. I'm sure there's rights to BookScan and everything else that we can't. Doesn't USA Today do this?
They have another list, yeah.
Yeah, it's the USA Today list.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the number one. And that one, the problem with that one is they don't categorize, right?
Yeah, you can still look at it, obviously. But, they'll put, cookbooks and fiction books and nonfiction books all together.
Right.
But still, it's, as far as I know, a pretty valid list.
Oh, no, it is.
Yeah.
I think that's almost like BookScan.
Yeah, I mean, and we keep talking about the Blaze doing it, but the BookScan's already doing it. I mean, they're counting the amount sold and ranking them by
I'm saying that the Blaze should report on that.
Yeah.
And that should just be a weekly report of what it is according to BookScan. Period.
Yeah, it's
that's
just
the way it should be.
It's a proprietary number, so that's why we have to be vague with what we're talking about here, because obviously you don't. I mean, it's their information. They own it, and you have to subscribe to it. So we can't talk about it exactly. But the point here is, though, it's like you have something pretty specific. I mean, it's exactly right. It's like there's no
boop. That's it.
You scanned and you sold it, and it's over. That's all you need. But whatever. I mean, this is what the New York Times does with everything. And remember that next time you read one of their stories.
I do not want, from here on out, any reprints, anything, I want New York Times off the cover. I want New York Times off the cover. We have 9 number one New York Times. If I'm not mistaken, I don't really, we stopped, honestly, after about 5, we stopped counting, and I never believed that, but we do. And it's like, we are so blessed, and we are so grateful for you. But New York Times, and when they come in and you see the BookScan numbers, and then you see what the New York Times does, we've been ripped off by them, I think, twice. And we're like, come on, that's ridiculous. It doesn't matter anymore. But it does.
When it's close, it's one thing,
This is not close.
No.
This is not even close. Okay.